Congressman Guy Reschenthaler, among the lawmakers addressed today. He's the congressman from Pennsylvania's 14th congressional district, and he joins us now. Congressman, great to have you with us.
Vince, great to be on. I'm a big fan, and please just call me Guy.
All right, we'll do that then for now. Guy, sir, the speech today, what did you make of Zelensky's address? Clearly, look, if I was in Zelensky's position, I'd be asking for the moon. I'd be asking for literally everything. Right. It's not like, as far as I'm concerned, my country's at war. I don't really care if other countries get drawn into it. I need to fight for my people. But what did you make of his address today, and how did Congress receive it?
Well, it was interesting. So I felt very compelled by Zelensky's speech. I went in, though, more than willing to give as much support to Ukraine as possible, shy of boots on the ground. But I think Congress appreciated President Zelensky speaking. I will say this. I was a little disturbed by all the virtue signaling that I saw, especially from colleagues across the aisle. It's one thing to give a standing ovation. It's another thing to wear a Ukrainian flagpole lapin. But if you're going to virtue signal like that, put pen to paper, get a resolution to Biden saying we need an AUMF, or saying that we need to supply the MiG-29s from Poland to Ukraine. Say something on paper that you'll support a no-fly zone. That the hollow support, the superficial nature of some of my Democratic colleagues is a little hard to take.
Sorry, let me just make sure I understand you correctly, because I want to resolve a couple things you just said. You said that you don't support boots on the ground. You support up to, but not boots on the ground. But you did mention that, if they wanted to demonstrate that they actually wanted to support Ukraine, they should pass maybe an AUMF, an authorization for use of military force, or a no-fly zone, which of course would be direct combat between U.S. jets and Russian jets. Do you support those things, or are you just pointing out that their failure to indicate support for those things shows that the virtue signaling is kind of meaningless?
Well, Vince, I'm doing both. A lot of their virtue signaling is meaningless because they don't have the will to put pen to paper their wishes. So it's easy to sit up there and give a standing ovation, give lip service, but that is not what Zelensky needs. Now, I'm a little bit more hawkish than your average Republican right now. I do support a no-fly zone, but I'll say this. That we're not going to have a no-fly zone. We have dogfights in the air like we did in World War II. Once our planes go up, the Russian planes go down because they know that our planes are far superior to theirs. We'll be able to shoot their planes out of the sky 3 miles away.
Yeah, our technology on the jets we have now makes it so that we can shoot down planes before they're within visual sight of one another. It's not even, they can't even see us, and we'll be shooting them down in the event that occurs. But what we're talking about, Guy, is direct combat with the Russians. The concern among, why not support boots on the ground then at that point if you want to take it that far, because that is direct combat.
So I would still say that I think that once we get involved, the Russians will stop. And the reason I don't think we need boots on the ground is that once we control the airspace and give the Ukrainians time to launch a counteroffensive, they'll be able to handle the Russians on their own. They're clearly doing that now, and they're doing it without dominance of the sky. That's a contested battlefield arena. So I'm saying we need a no-fly zone. Now, look, I know that I'm in probably a small minority of people calling for that, but I will say this. If we don't get that no-fly zone up, Russia will eventually use this as a war of attrition. We're going to see a lot more civilian casualties. We know that Putin is targeting civilian targets. So how much more suffering are we going to allow? How many more refugees are we going to have? Another 2 or 3 million? At some point, the Western powers need to get involved. And remember, all the talk about escalation, it's the Russians that have escalated this. They're the invading country. Ukraine did nothing.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, look, we can definitely point to them and be like, look, you started this, clearly. But the problem, the looming problem that exists in all these conversations is that they are a nuclear force. They have strategic nukes. They have tactical nukes. That's a big deal. And it looks like Vladimir Putin he appears to be pretty unstable, actually. So with that in mind,
well, can I make 2 points? Yeah, just 2 quick points on that, Vince. Number one, if tactical nuclear weapons are going to be used in this conflict, it's going to be on Ukraine. And the fact that President Zelensky is willing to take that risk, calling for a U.S.-backed no-fly zone, that speaks volumes because he's the one that's bearing the brunt of that. as far as the intercontinental ballistic missiles that could hit us,
sure.
Look, we know that once the Iron Curtain fell, the Soviet generals said they were never going to launch nuclear weapons. If Putin did order a strike, first off, they should be very concerned with us. We have a much more robust defense system and nuclear arsenal. But at no point are we going to get to that. That is bluff. That's military blustering. That's saber rattling. No one is seriously considering the Russians shooting up nuclear weapons.
So you're of the impression that Putin is a rational enough actor that you can discount the nuclear threat.
And even if he is not, Vince, I would say that those generals around him are rational enough. Everybody loses in nuclear war. Now, if you want to talk about the tactical nuclear weapons, that maybe that's possible. But again, that would fall on Ukraine, and the Ukrainian president, the Ukrainian military is requesting the support. So again, I would defer to the credibility of Zelensky, who knows of that possibility and is willing to accept the risk. And why wouldn't he? I mean, he's in an existential threat with Russia taking over his nation and becoming a satellite state of the Russian Federation.
The only problem I have, I guess, with this assessment is I wonder about the rationality of the generals around Putin, because if they were rational, they probably would have begged him off of this nonsense to begin with. I mean, they clearly are in way over their heads at this moment. They logistically have been failures. They are pursuing a war that is indefensible, and it's leading to thousands of Russian deaths already. If they're willing to just kind of go along with all of this, I don't understand, I guess, what's going to make them finally find their spine if Putin's like, yeah, pull a nuke off.
Well, there's a big difference between a long war of attrition in Ukraine and firing off nuclear weapons. And I think that the generals around him would do that. Also, that if we can disgrace Putin, if we can show Putin's weakness here, then maybe there can be a regime change within Russia. And I'm not saying regime change like we're going to go in and do it, but maybe some of those leaders can emerge and, maybe democratize Russia. I don't know. That's a pipe dream, but it's possible if Putin gets overthrown. There's clearly a resistance movement in Russia, and there's other people that live in Great Britain, for example, that have led an opposition government in sorts to Putin. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. But this is also more. This is also more than just about Ukraine and Russia. It's also about whether you're going to see the Chinese Communist Party attempt to invade Taiwan. Because if we allow the Russians to take Ukraine, they can take Taiwan.
Yes.
This is about Iran firing missiles into Israel. When the United States steps back, our adversaries step forward, and we're seeing that. And this can all really get traced back to Joe Biden's weakness, his vacillation, the debacle, the disaster we saw in Afghanistan. So there are consequences far beyond Ukraine right now.
We're speaking to Congressman Guy Reschenthaler of Pennsylvania, heard Volodymyr Zelensky's address earlier today. We had a conversation yesterday with Congressman Darrell Issa, and he had a novel way of talking about a no-fly zone. Most typically, first of all, no-fly zone is really a euphemism for an aerial combat zone. Which just to be very clear of what's going on, we would have superiority clearly, so we could maintain that air should we send our guys in. But yesterday, I had Darrell Issa tell me that, well, what we could do, and this is kind of what it looks like Biden signed off on today, $800 million in further military assistance. We could keep sending in the very effective anti-aircraft weapons that we've been sending to Ukraine, things like Stinger missiles. There's Soviet-era S-300 is being sent in by a variety of forces in Europe as well. And the Ukrainians have had a lot of success in shooting down Russian aircraft that dare to fly into the airspace, and have been using our javelins to very successfully knock out Russian vehicles from miles away. Increasing that kind of weaponry, is that a good vehicle here?
So we should be doing that as well. And the other thing, so Darrell Issa is absolutely correct in that we can also be jamming I almost said Soviet. We could be jamming the Russian planes and anti-aircraft missiles through electronic warfare. we could be doing that as well. And remember, we should be getting the MiG-29s from Poland into Ukraine. So we're making sure the Ukrainians have enough planes to continue this war. But look, at the end of the day, unless we get in there and do a no-fly zone, this is going to be a long, drawn-out war of attrition. And Ukraine might ultimately win. I still think Russia would prevail unless we get a no-fly zone. But the human cost, the humanitarian suffering, the amount of refugees you're going to see will just skyrocket, or will just continue to increase if we don't go in now with a no-fly zone. But yes, of course, we should be getting the Ukrainians small arms, Stinger missiles, long-range surface-to-air missiles to take out more Russian planes. Of course, we should do all that. But what we're seeing now is we're seeing the West leaderless, because Biden refuses to lead. We see NATO refusing to come in at the defense of Ukraine. Yeah. And we also see the United States and Great Britain unable to meet our treaty obligations. Remember, the Ukrainians in the late 90s gave up their nuclear weapons with the assurance that the United States and Great Britain would guarantee sovereignty of Ukraine if Russia invaded. Now Russia is invaded, and where are the Americans? Where are the Brits? We're nowhere to be found.
Yeah, Russia, I believe, was a part of that deal as well. And Russia violated it. Mm-hmm.
But now what position are we in when we try to get some second-rate power to give up biological weapons or nuclear weapons? No one will take us seriously. So you talk about trying to denuclearize North Korea one day. That regime will never now give up their nuclear weapons, because if we promise we'll protect their sovereignty from, let's say, China, they'll know that we're not going to back up that promise. So again, we're very focused on Ukraine right now, and that should be the case. But the actions and inactions we take will lead to greater weakness of America abroad in all areas.
Well, yeah, and by the way, the lesson of these countries and the idea that they won't denuclearize for fear of what happens to them, look no further than Libya. Libya agrees to denuclearize, yeah. and then Gaddafi gets killed, and we've got Hillary Clinton, bragging that we killed Gaddafi. Like this, there's a lot of lessons from this, and countries are watching, going, "Wait, why would I give up my nukes? Because I at least get a seat at the bargaining table with these nuclear weapons."
Yeah,
so that's where we are.
Yeah,
Congressman Guy Reschenthaler, thank you very much. I really appreciate your listenership and for you stopping by today.
Hey, likewise, Vince. Anytime. Take care.